Welcome back. We have just a wonderful, exciting parade of products to show you that are beneficial to diabetes. And I'm joined now by Simone Collins, and she's representing the canola oil industry, basically.
Exactly, the entire industry.
And I recently looked up the name. It has something to do with Canada
And oil.
Oil.
Yes, basically.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Originally, we were growing rapeseed in North America, and we started doing some basic health research, and it was discovered that uric acid, which is a part of rapeseed, was not heart healthy. And so they bred out that particular component, and at that point they decided that what we would be eating should have a different name than what we were producing for industrial purposes. And so what we are now growing for eating is called canola, and because all of the work was done in Canada, it was taken from Canadian oil.
So it's rapeseed originally that was genetically they got rid of the quality they didn't like.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That took 22 years in the original way of doing plant breeding, if you can imagine.
No, that's a long time.
That's a long time that
Yeah.
they worked on this. Yes.
And canola oil has been available for about 10 years now, 20 years?
No, basically available commercially as canola oil since 1971.
Okay.
Okay, so
Longer
that's
than I
when it
thought.
received GRAS status in the United States, and of course was acceptable in Canada, and then spread throughout the world.
So what are the benefits?
Well, I think that the easiest way for you and I to talk benefits is if we look at the dietary fat chart, because this is a very visual way of looking at it.
Maybe we can turn it so
we
can
can
all
turn
see
it so
it.
everybody see it. The red portion is our saturated fat, and so anyone who wants to eat a healthy diet should look at minimizing their saturated fat to 10% or less daily.
Because saturated fat clogs your arteries.
Exactly, exactly. Directly correlated to heart disease. So canola oil has 7%. It is the lowest in saturated fat overall. Now, the second component is the yellow. And so if we look at the yellow bars and who's got a lot of yellow, safflower, olive, canola, those are known as monounsaturated fats, and they will reduce your LDL, or what we call your lousy cholesterol. Okay, so we want to reduce the amount of the bad cholesterol, and the monounsaturates will help us to do that. So we find those in all of these oils as well as nuts. The third component of canola oil is omega-3s, because you have it in the oil naturally occurring. And while it also occurs in flaxseed, you really can't cook with flaxseed oil, and so that's where canola really shines. And that's why many professionals looking at canola from a health profile are saying that it is the #1 choice. Combine that with some of the culinary properties that we have with canola. Very high heat smoke point, so that you can heat it to 420 degrees, second only to peanut oil, and only a couple of degrees off. If you put it in the refrigerator to make a salad, do a marinade, it doesn't solidify.
Like olive oil.
Like olive oil would do. And that's simply because it is so low in saturated fat. You need the saturated fat to get a solid.
Yes.
And because it's so low, it's healthy for us, but it also doesn't congeal in the refrigerator. So there's all kinds of those benefits that we're looking at.
It also doesn't have the flavor that olive oil. You wouldn't put olive oil in a cake recipe.
Exactly.
And you
exactly.
you could use canola oil.
Oh, most definitely. We have all types of recipes, very successful recipes for cookies, biscotti, breads, muffins, all of those using oil, and very successful and very acceptable to anyone who is diabetic. In fact, works very well with all of these sugar alternatives also.
What else did you bring to show us?
What else? Well, I think one of the exciting things is that I brought a tablespoon, and that's a great reminder that FDA has given canola oil qualified health claim. 1.5 tablespoons of canola oil every day will reduce your risk of heart disease. And that,
like medicine?
Well, yes. I mean, you certainly wouldn't do it in addition to a high-fat diet. But I mean, if you substituted canola oil for a saturated fat, then that certainly fits within the qualified health claim. And at 1.5 tablespoons a day, that is the lowest amount of fat to give you benefits for any health claim that has been provided in this country. So I think that that's something to remember as well.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things.
One of these and one of these a day.
1.5 tablespoons.
Okay.
That will provide you with some health benefits. So I think that's important for us to remember.
And more than olive oil.
Well, less actually. You would require more olive oil on a daily basis to meet the qualified health claim than canola has.
Okay.
So that's also important for someone who is looking to reduce their total fat intake or caloric intake. Because while we say, well, what's the difference between 1.5 and 2 tablespoons a day, that's a significant number of calories over a year.
Yes.
So I think we have to take the whole day, week, month, and year into perspective. So those are some of the messages that I think are really important as regards to canola oil, and some of the things that we want to remind people about something that is grown both in Canada and in the United States, and grown very successfully.
I didn't know this. You just provided a great education on oils. This is a great chart, and thanks for coming over to talk to us.
Well, it was my pleasure. Much success with the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're most
Thanks
welcome.
So long.